Well, why don't we begin? Today, there are 4 different breakout sessions, and they're at different grade levels. I've been asked to do this one with Mrs. Claudia Hales. She's a mother of how many? Just one this past year? Or did you have more than one?
3.
Yeah, 3. But basically, I taught her son in the 8th grade, Christopher, and then her daughter this past year, and she was in my debate class. And
We went to constitutional response.
and then the experiential learning. So I'm going to kind of talk about, the theme basically is, how do we unite a Christian classroom with a Christian home? What do we do here? What happens here at American Heritage School? What happens in our classrooms that unifies us with you? Part of the mission statement, and I love this word, is we are to assist. We were just talking about you, Joanne, and you missed it all. I know.
Airhead I was up there.
She's so modest, you know that. But basically we're asked to assist parents. And I think that's really powerful. In a world that's trying to that is usurping authority from any local government, especially the family government, it's very refreshing to find an environment where if a student says, well, my dad said, I said, believe your dad. He's got authority over you. Your dad's a good man. You better love him and honor him. Don't listen to anything I say. I mean, if it's going to conflict with the home, I'm not going to do that. I'm here to assist your parents. I'm not to replace your parents. I'm not smarter than your parents. Okay? And I love that because that's what I want teachers to say to my children too. You know, even if I am wrong, let me suffer for my consequences for being a bad parent to a degree, within reason. So, uniting the Christian home and the Christian classroom. I wanted to kind of start with an article I read recently, and I love the opening line. I'll tell you a little about the article, but I love the opening line. Being a Christian in today's culture is starting to feel a bit like being the only sober person at the party. Now, this was the opening line to an article where in Canada there's a group that's advocating that doctors stop identifying gender at birth. Because that child just might want to change his or her gender later on, and it isn't fair to stigmatize them, to label them at such a young age. I know. It makes Reason stare, as Eliza R. Snow would. No, that's the Lord saying Reason. She says that too, Reason stare. But I put that in there because I think we need to understand that our students are in a culture, they're in a world. Are there more chairs? There's some chairs over there. You grab those. Can you help, Rob? There's a culture that we live in. Our culture is really like that. You have to, even I was telling my daughter about this last night. She's 14, she'll be a freshman here next year. And I said, do you realize that people are saying those kinds of things? And she just looked at me like, Dad, that doesn't make any sense at all. And I said, well, have you ever been to a party with drunk people? No. That doesn't make sense either, honey. I've been there and it's not. They make no sense, right? So these are some of the challenges we face. We live in a world of profit and entitlement. We're raising children at a time when it's very, very difficult to be an adult, to think like an adult, to reason like an adult. I was looking at these are just headlines, paying women for child care and housework. That's what a lot of wives, my wife would love to have a bonus, but to go into the family business for money. The concept of entitlement, the concept of everything is about profit, not principle. Paying children for good grades, sick of a market-driven world, raising grateful children in an entitled world. These are the challenges we face. Now, have we been warned about them? We have. Alexis de Tocqueville, he was a French economist, statesman that came over in the 1830s. He took a snapshot of American culture, of American government. He started at the founding of the Virginia settlements in Jamestown, went all the way through, gave his opinion on why America was good and what challenges America would face. In one of his chapters, he talks about the dangers of despotism entering a democracy. Okay? Despotism, of course, is akin to tyranny. It's basically where you don't think you're being told what to do along the way. But he talked about how this power that is in a democracy, not a republic, democracy, we could argue, is a degenerate form, depending on how you define democracy. But this power is absolute, minute, regular, provident, and mild. Okay, and a lot of it you could argue is the spirit of equality, and we'll get into that a little bit. It would be like the authority of a parent if, like that authority, its object was to prepare men for manhood. But it seeks, on the contrary, to keep Americans in perpetual childhood. It is well content that the people should rejoice, provided they think of nothing but rejoicing. For their happiness, such a government willingly labors, but it chooses to be the sole agent and the only arbiter of that happiness. It provides for their security, foresees and supplies their necessities, facilitates their pleasures, manages their principal concerns, directs their industry, regulates the descent of property, and subdivides their inheritance. What remains but to spare them all the care of thinking and all the trouble of living? Now, at American Heritage School, our goal is to help them to learn how to appreciate thinking and to enjoy the trouble and the challenges of living and feeling, right? Think of the whole virtual world we're moving into that's so beyond some of our even understanding there. Thus it renders the exercise of the free agency of man less useful and less frequent. Go back to what Mrs. Erickson said today. The goal here at American Heritage School and in any good home with parents and children is to teach children how to wisely use their agency. But we live in a society today that is basically telling us agency isn't important. We can do it better for you. Don't worry. Trust in me. Right? The jungle. Okay. Listen, look at this one. It circumscribes the will within a narrow range and gradually robs a man of all the uses of himself. The principle of equality, think about with marriage and all this stuff, the principle of equality has prepared men for these things. It has predisposed men to endure them and to often look at them as benefits. So we live in a world where it's almost impossible to raise adults. Okay? Here's some of our challenges, some of the cycles we face. These are cycles in history where on this side, when you go from faith, hope, courage, you're coming out of bondage, faith, hope, courage, liberty, freedom, abundance. Basically, you're listening to principles, prophets, good forms of government. You've been humbled. Life is good. You go over here where selfishness, complacency, morality, apathy, dependence, bondage. And you see that you've got prophets and statesmen governing over here with a virtuous people. Over here, you have a people that don't know how to be adults that are governed by profit. Just some challenges there, okay? I know. Now, I can get this, if you're interested, we'll have this available. Yes. Let's look at this. This is Montesquieu, Plato, and Isaiah. Did you realize they all agree on this kind of stuff? The principle of equity is corrupted not only when the spirit of equality is extinct, but likewise when we fall into a spirit of extreme equality. One of the dangers of extreme equality is what we're facing today. Genderless human beings. You can't say something's better than any other thing. No religion is superior over any other religion. No moral is better than everything's equal across the board, right? Montesquieu talks us about when this extreme equality, now we need equality, but when the extreme equality comes in, functions of government and authority cease to be revered. Parents cease to be revered. No respect for old age. Parents, husbands, women, and children will shake off all subjection. No such things as manners, order, or virtue. Plato tells us, and by the way, this is right, Plato, in Plato's digression, this is right when democracy always leads to tyranny. Always. And so he's saying this is what it looks like in a nation, in a democracy that's about to go to tyranny. Okay? And this can apply to individuals. We have children sometimes that are just one step away from tyranny, getting themselves into so much trouble, right? Anarchy is in hearts and homes. An excess of liberty leads to an excess of slavery. Young people are habituated to a life of luxury, idleness, body and mind, indifferent to the cultivation of virtue. Old men acting like young men. Teachers fear and flatter because the students will have no authority over them. It's a frightening place to be, right? For as the government is, such as will be the man, full of variety and disorder, dispensing a sort of equality to equal and unequals alike. Virtues are exiled, indulging the appetite of the hour, life with no law nor order. Now Isaiah says the same thing. People will oppress one another, every man his neighbor, the young will be insolent, disrespectful to the elderly, the vile to the honorable. The look on their faces betray them, they flaunt their sin like Sodom, they cannot hide it. As for my people, babes, subject them, women wield authority over them. O my people, your leaders mislead you, abolishing your traditional ways. What mean ye that you beat my people to pieces and grind the faces of the poor? Again, raising children in a society like this, compulsory equalization. Again, this is education as well. You take God's principle of individuality out of it, the divine heritage that we have from God, then everyone has to be equal. And you're forced down that path, right? Because it's easier that way. It's easier to manage people if you can get them all to think and act alike. You don't want people thinking and reasoning and relating and recording too much because they start to figure things out, right? Compulsory education, a perfect equality we produce. That is to say, equal want, equal wretchedness, equal beggary, and on the part of the practitioners, a woeful, helpless, and desperate disappointment. That's the last thing we want in our students. Such is the event of all compulsory equalizations. They pull down what is above, they never raise what is below, and they depress high and low together beneath the level of what was originally the lowest.
That's pretty true.
Okay? And this is de Tocqueville. Americans are so enamored of equality that they would rather be equal in slavery than unequal in freedom.
Wow. Who said that?
That's de Tocqueville. Yeah, interesting. So what do we do? Well, what I want to do is I'm going to just mention some of these things, and then Mrs. Hales is going to share her perspective on how the American Heritage Classroom has unified her home and vice versa. Her home has helped to unify what we do here. But I want to go through some of the things that we've already talked about today and how they battle this movement towards equalization. Now, equality is important. But extreme equality, like Montesquieu says, is very, very, very dangerous. Okay? Yeah. So, honoring thy father and thy mother, assisting them, we've talked about this. Our goal here is to honor the authority of moms and dads. They will stand before God. We will to a degree, but not to the degree that they will. And we need to basically try to do our best to stay out of their way. And let their students know that we are here to assist your parents. In other words, everything I do with your parents' permission. And if I don't have your parents' permission to do it, frankly, I don't do it. And I've had parents come in and say, you don't have my permission to do that. And I say, I won't do it then. And I don't. It hurts. Humble pie is so hot. You guys, do you know how many flavors of humble pie there are? I'm still finding them. I thought I was done at 50, but they just continue. Yes?
Can you give us an example of something they told you to do?
When we were talking about, we were dealing with, I can't remember if it was Anna Karenina or Jane Eyre, but we were talking about women's rights. And there's been a movement regarding modesty and how women, basically, there are those who say, I shouldn't have to dress modestly for men not to bother me, type of a thing. Or others are saying, women, you've got to be careful how you dress in public because there are bad men out there. Well, it's not my fault that they're bad, I'll dress to it. So we were talking about this, we actually got into the discussion of rape. And I was sharing stories from a book called We Were Not Alone, where LDS family in Nazi Germany, that God had protected them while Russians were doing horrible things to people. Well, I didn't know that there was a student in the class that had had some challenges, and that topic was really heavy. And so, once I was told that, I backed off a little bit and apologized and moved forward. But you just don't know. You don't know. But one of the things that in my class in particular, because we talk about government and economics, kind of the dirty, nasty part of the world, it brings up a lot of hard issues. When we get into Anna Karenina, we get into adultery, we get into divorce, and we get into really, really hard topics. Sometimes I find out later, oh, your dad committed adultery. I didn't know that. Ooh, no wonder you were crying during that discussion. Whoa. And that's when I have the personal conversations with him and we work it through. So there are just situations like that. Yeah?
Well, I'm Gail Long and I teach math here. And in one of my 7th grade classes, one of the young ladies normally got help from her dad. And she said, well, my dad's not at home anymore. And I thought, that was kind of scary. So I went back to her and I said, is he living somewhere else? Yeah, he's up in Salt Lake. And I said, well, that's not too far away. Well, it turned out her older brother was in the hospital and Dad had gone up to stay in Salt Lake while the brother was in the hospital. But she said, he's really sick. My brother's really sick. Well, I gave her the opportunity to call and put her brother's name in at the temple, which she did not know she could do.
Wow.
And that was on a Tuesday. On Wednesday, she came back to class and she said, Mrs. Long, it's getting better.
Yeah.
On Thursday, she said, my brother's coming home.
Yeah.
I was so grateful to a Heavenly Father who would not only take care of the brother, but would also take care of the little sister.
Yeah.
So that was the way we could honor mom and dad and tie home and classroom together. I couldn't have done anything like that in a public school.
Another example of, thank you, Gail, another example is because I bring in the words of the prophets that they gave 70 years ago, particularly on socialism, communism, and so forth, and their opinions on those things. Sometimes we have parents that don't agree with what Howard W. Hunter said in 1966, or Marion G. Romney. And they have a real hard time with the New Deal. They think that it was actually good. You know, if I teach, but again, everything I teach I back up by the words of the prophets and the scriptures. But some people, they haven't heard those things before, and they're in a, I remember getting into a discussion on the Fed with a fellow who was a financial planner, and he had very different opinions on those kinds of things. And so I honor that though. I say, you're the parent, and I just pull back. I try to be really, really careful. If I find out there's a challenge with mental illness or anxiety or divorce or whatever, and most of the time the Spirit warns me, be careful, but sometimes I don't listen like I have to, and that's when I get into trouble. There are times when I'll say to the students, never mind, and I move on. And that usually saves me a lot of headache. When I move on, it's when I get into trouble. So, does that make sense? So we're looking at the 7 principles. We've talked about those today with Janet Erickson. Original source materials, primary sources. I mean, again, in a world of textbooks, in a world of politically driven and charged textbook creation and foundations that govern these types of things, for our relating history to now, one of the biggest challenges we face in our world today is we don't relate it to now. The Nephites didn't relate it very well. The Germans didn't relate it really well. The Russians, nowadays, I remember Hugh Nibley in a 1957 priesthood manual, he wrote in there, woe to the generation that understands the Book of Mormon. And people wrote to him and called him and said, how can you say that? Isn't it woe to the generation that doesn't understand? He said, no. He said, because basically we've romanticized the Book of Mormon. Those dumb Nephites, we could have seen it easy. Oh, the Germans. Oh, we could have watched Hitler a mile away. We would have recognized that he was a snake in the grass. But we don't. We never do very well because we hardly ever bring it back to what's happening today. So that's one of the things we, at least in my classroom and many others, we try to say, what's happening in our world today and how does history apply now? All of a sudden history becomes their favorite subject. Government becomes their favorite subject because they see, oh my goodness gracious, we're repeating ourselves. Do you know what I mean? And so the answer is to destroy ourselves are the same, but also the answer is to fix ourselves are the same. That's a really good thing. Family is the most important level of government throughout all of our curriculum. Private property, conscience. We go through whole and broken healing books. Whole books are books where good is good, evil is evil, but good wins. Up through the age of 14, that's really what kids should be reading. Whole books. They need to know that good always wins. At that point, you can start introducing broken books. Broken books where good is good, evil is evil, but evil wins. Picture Dorian Gray, Lord of the Flies, 1984, Brave New World, whatever it is. And then healing books can either be whole or broken, right? Lord of the Flies was a very great healing book for me because it told me that law matters, that records matter, that moms and dads matter. Right? Bent books we should avoid like the plague. They're pornography, horror movies, where good is good, good is bad, and evil is good is evil and evil is good. So when it's twisted on itself, turned on itself. Writings of the founders, words of the prophets. We talked about living textbooks, word studies, notebook methodology, timelines. The importance of the Abrahamic covenant, very significant. It's not only talked about in the Old Testament, but the Book of Mormon in 2 Nephi chapter 1 reminds us of that this is a covenant land, right? Speech, debate, writing, Socratic seminars. We deal with hard topics here that are difficult to do in setting because we have the words of the prophets and the scriptures to fall back on. You know, in an ideal world, I guess, we would let students make the decision for themselves of what is right or wrong. I mean, in most places, that's what you're supposed to do with debate and speech and writing and thinking. But in my class, I always come back to, okay, this is what the world says. Here are the two arguments. Let's go back to what the prophets have said and what the Lord has said. Because I'm assisting moms and dads. I want you to know exactly what the Lord has said on this thing. You have to decide from there, but you're going to know what the Lord has said. Is that fair? And then personal interviews and interactions. There's so many opportunities here. I didn't even put up their food. I mean, there's so many things that we do here to make the learning, the medicine go down. You know, a spoonful of international lunches helps the medicine go down. You know what I mean? By the food you shall know them. So, with that, I'd like to have Claudia Hales talk about her experiences here with American Heritage School and how what we do here has unified her home and helped her be a better parent, help her in a relationship with her students, her children, and then question and answer. If we can do that, if that's okay. Okay. Let's put this around your neck.
Isn't he great? He's wonderful. I am so honored to be here, and I just have an extreme love for this school. I adore this school. And it's so important for me, and in my home as a mother and as a teacher. American Heritage share very extremely important values that goes hand to hand with our goals and the same thing that our family does. And it has been so refreshing that we don't have to correct lessons and that have been taught because we go again hand in hand. American Heritage stands by and teaches true principles and are not influenced by outside pressures to adopt philosophies of men. So American Heritage is true what we teach, and we do what needs to be done, what is correct, what is right. Fundamentally, we believe that the family is responsible for the education of its children. No matter what, that's our role as a parents to teach our own children. Because of the level of parental involvement allowed us and encouraged by American Heritage, we can actually be active parents and participants and leaders in each of our children's learning. I love to come and help. That way I get to know the teachers, I get to know each one of my children's friends and families, and I just love it. I really do. We attend yearly conferences that helps us strengthen the families. So the commitment and inputs come from both parties, and there is and always full visibility into what is being taught. And so we know what they've been taught because I sit in the classroom for hours, and I have learned so much, even just going to the field trips. I have learned so many things that I'm sure I will not learn in my entire life. So I'm so grateful for that. It's obvious that we have a trust and love with each of our children's teacher. We know that our children won't be taught anything contrary to our beliefs. And more so, the teachers are providing reinforcement of ideals and behaviors we promote at home. What we learn here, I say we because I am one of the students. I tell the teachers, I'm sorry, but you're going to have an extra student this year. And so parental input is always welcome regarding several topics pertaining to the students' needs and overall well-being. Anytime I have a concern, I approach the teacher, either by email, by phone call, by text, and they are always willing to help. Anytime, they go the extra mile, believe me. They are so wonderful. For example, parents have been asked to comment on the amount of homework on other items that balance the student's life at school and home. And they are listening. They are ready to listen, and they are not only listeners, but they are doers. They really take your word and they work with your children on one-on-one basis. So they really get the individual care rather than the mass care. So you know personally what your child needs, and the teachers are willing to work with you. Another example is the annual questionnaires that are sent so that the school can get better understanding what parents expect from American Heritage. Because our parents, that we want to be involved, we want to know results. We want to see what's going on and what can we do to help out. We see American Heritage as a partner in educating our children, and we are in debt. I honestly tell every single teacher that I am eternally in debt to those who have sacrificed so our children can have the type of education and attention that we know they need. In our minds, the teachers are more like extended families. I just tell them, you are just like my mom, like my sister, like my brother, because they become part of my family. And these treasured relationships don't just last throughout the year. They are lifelong friends. We become friends forever. And American Heritage inclusion of the parents and family in the education of the students, the shared beliefs and gospel standards are some of the main reasons we have been patrons and active parents for this school for 12 years. And I was talking on Saturday, we went to a wedding reception, one of our friends, and I saw some of the teachers. And I just told them, it seems like this is an American Heritage party. Because I saw like 20 and plus teachers, and I was so happy, so grateful to see one of Rita Brinkenhoff was there, and she said, yeah, I went to this girl's farewell, homecoming, now her marriage. And I thought, where else do you get this? So I am so grateful to be able to be part of this small community. But together we can do amazing things. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Sure.
What questions do you have? Does this sound too good to be true? Yes.
Well, my name's Tiffany Hesson. I'm from Liberty Hills, and we're kind of just starting this and developing our own scope and sequence and stuff like that. And I am really interested in what you have to say about the whole broken, healing, and bent books.
You're interested in...
I would like you to tell me everything you know about that.
There's actually a book where he goes into detail. It's called The Healing Power of Books. And I know his first name is Daniel, I don't know the last name. It's called The Healing Power of Books. Healing Power of Stories, yes. I think that's what it's called. Thank you, that's my wife back there.
What is it?
Healing Power of Stories. Now, what's interesting is, again, I tell my students all the time, I say, look, the books you're reading right now, will they sustain you in crisis? Much of the world is fantasy right now. Virtual, fantasy, and but there's great power in those too. But some of them are, I say, is that too much brain candy? I mean, you've got to have something that will does that prepare you for the moment, a hurricane hits, or depending where you're living in the country, or a tornado, or a death in the family, or a divorce, or are you ready to handle this kind of a thing? I tell them it's by their books ye shall know them, to a great degree. It's how you see the world. And I say, good books will sustain you, just like, when you put food storage in the basement, that if you don't put that can of peaches or bottle of peaches in the basement, it won't be there for you. But if you're not reading the kinds of books that fill you with truth and they give you hope, then you might find yourself in a crisis. There may not be a dragon, and I like stories with dragons, but there may not be a dragon to come and save you. But if you know that...
Blaine will come and save you.
Blaine will come and save you. Does that help a little bit there?
Well, yeah, I just, I want our students to graduate from our program and to be safe against the philosophies of men.
Right.
And I feel that in order to do that, they have to study those, and it's kind of a difficult balance, because you want families to understand, yes, we are studying adultery and anachronism, but we are weighing and measuring those things against gospel principles and
Sure.
the scriptures.
Sure.
It's different than other schools.
Yeah.
That's not the only story in anachronism.
Right.
Yeah. One of the big challenges we're facing is people don't read as much anymore. And if they do read again, it's usually pretty light stuff. Not that it's bad. There's, you could argue that there is value in Hunger Games. It's a frightening look at the future of a world without God, when man becomes God. But I find if you can, the key to my success in converting a student that doesn't read to reading is find out what they're interested in and go with it. I have a friend who teaches at Timpview High School, and he tells the story of a ninth grader that was in his class. Every year when he has his ninth graders come in, they write an essay on what they're interested in, why they're there, what do they love. And this kid wrote, "I hate school, I hate being told what to do. All I like are horses." Well, they're about to start the Scarlet Letter. Now, how do you get a 14-year-old to love the Scarlet Letter when he hates school and he hates being told what to do and he loves horses? So this teacher, wise teacher, took him inside and said, "You really like horses, don't you?" "Yeah. I have a book for you. You want to read it?" "What is it?" "It's called Lonesome Gods by Louis L'Amour. It's got lots of horses." So the boy read it, loved it. Told his mom, "This is the first time I've ever loved a book. This is amazing." And so the teacher said, my friend said, "Well, now take the book and read it again." By the way, the kid bought his own copy. "Read it again, and I want you to mark every quote on education that you can find and the importance of learning." And he did that, wrote this nice big report. Wasn't reading the Scarlet Letter. I tell this story to my students, and I say, does that teacher now give him the Scarlet Letter? No, probably not. Probably should give him Little Britches. But he's a freshman, yeah, but he likes horses. Give him Little Britches. He'll love Little Britches. And then graduate him to the Virginian. You like horses? Go read the Virginian. The Old West, homesteading, real men out there and taking the law in your own hands, hanging men from trees. I mean, this is the kind of book boys like. And then, once you've built that relationship of trust, you say, okay, now, the Scarlet Letter. Or he may decide the Scarlet Letter is not necessary for him at that time. I don't know. Yes?
I wonder if the bent books can also be books where it's not clear what's good and evil.
Yeah.
Because I think we have more of that now, what's the word, you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
where you can't tell what's
Oh, yeah.
what's wrong.
I got into a real debate with my juniors last year, and they pulled Mr. Dye in because they could not believe that I would be allowed to teach at this school. Because I said, basically, is there ever such thing as a good witch? "Oh, yeah." "In real life?" "Well, no." "Then why do we read books about good witches? Is adultery good? If it's in fiction, is it okay?" "Well, no, it's always bad." "Well, aren't witches always bad too? And sorcery and witchcraft? They've destroyed, how many times in the Book of Mormon talks about witchcraft destroying the nation? You go to Malachi chapter 3, right on those verses with tithing, it's talking about sorcery and the dangers of magic and so forth. It's interesting conversation, because a lot of these books, like my wife said, are just kind of on, I don't know, it says, well, you look at all the great lessons you can learn. So it's tricky. It's really tricky, and it's easy to offend a lot of people, and I try not to do it much. But I do want the kids to think. They really had a hard, is there such a thing as a good witch? But it's just a story. Well, is adultery good in just a story? Well, no, of course not. Well, then why is that good? Well, I don't know. It's such a good lesson. I never mention names of books, by the way. Yes?
I'm currently teaching at a college in Nevada. I'm going to start teaching at American Heritage.
Down there?
Down there.
Wonderful.
In history. And I've taught U.S. experience and constitutional change. And one of the things that I use at college level is there's a site called Real Clear Politics. And they have, it's a news digest. And they've got articles generally that juxtapose one another. So they'll have something on the liberal side, they'll have something on the conservative side.
Right.
And they go back and forth. And I've had my college students use that as a as a place to go looking for articles to comment on.
That's great.
And then we study that. And I like your opinion about whether that's a good direction to go with the class in history here.
No, but basically looking at both sides in kind of a liberal conservative perspective. You know, ultimately, I had one student last year who was really quite a liberal, not only a liberal but a very articulate liberal.
Yeah.
I mean, he could quote his sources as he's speaking to me about
right.
it. And it was wonderful because he brought in a whole other perspective. And he said, Mr. Haymond, your curriculum is very one-sided. And I said, exactly. I said, because everything you guys are getting out in the world is sweet and syrupy and looks good and feels good. And you need the other side of the story to some degree. One of the most effective things I found that I do in classes, you take those two articles, liberal versus conservative, and then do a debate. The debates, I'm telling you, you want to see kids get out of their seats and start to think like they've never thought before. Have another group of kids challenging their thoughts. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Now the other part of this is that since we're in Las Vegas and we have not as large an LDS population, we have a Christian curriculum.
Right.
So we aren't specifically LDS.
That's fine.
And so
that's easily done.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Very exciting. Do you have any questions for Mrs. Hales here? As a parent here, we had fun. She went with me on the experiential learning trip that we did. We do a week-long experiential learning, and our topic was the law of the harvest. So we went down to orchards in Santa Quinn. Of course, you had to go to the Red Barn and have ice cream there, Zaggy ice cream. But besides that, we went down to the orchards. We learned how the farmers work with the apples and so forth. We went to the Genola, met with a seed saver, a guy who saved seeds, and he took us through his garden and let us extract seeds from pods and take them out. The kids were fascinated. We talked about the law of the harvest. We went out to a farm in Leamington, Utah. And kids had letters from their moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas about the law of the harvest, and they got to go out and by themselves on this 800-acre farm, sit on hay bales and tractors and read about what their parents think of the law of the harvest and how they've planted the seed and they want their children to grow up in righteousness and truth. And these kids were just changed by it all. Isn't that powerful? Then we went up to Logan. We went out to Slide Ridge Farm, honey. They do honey. One of the only places in the world where they make honey vinegar. So good. So we learned about the process of honey, and we went to the dairy farm out there, and we just had a blast talking about the law of the harvest and in food production, Adam and Eve, and then raising righteous seed. And it was awesome. We did a week of that, didn't we? We went to the sand dunes and had a blast, and cold and freezing and running around with barefoot in the sand, and it was about 40 degrees outside. And I didn't care because the kids were having so much fun, and we played the constitutional law game. We're showing how society breaks down as soon as there's no virtue in the people, and the laws promote all. And we played that game, and then it was so much fun.
It was wonderful. I didn't want to come home.
No one did. We had way too much fun. So, any other questions? Yes, Tree.
How do you, are you able to find a good balance for your kids' time schedules? Are they able to have enough time for fun and downtime to relax?
After school?
I'm talking about life in general. That's always the trick, I think. But as a parent, I'm just wondering.
From my perspective, and again, I can't speak. Oh, you talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, you know my perspective, don't you? Never mind.
I try not to over-schedule my kids. I try not to, honestly, because I learned several years ago. I went to a women's conference, and one of the parents who was presenting gave me, I was shocked. My life completely changed because she was teaching how she lived in a van. She didn't even have a time to cook normal meals because she lived from soccer to baseball, baseball to dance, guitar, you name it all. And after all, she came back home at the end of the soccer season, and her youngest boy undressed pretty much at the top of the stairs and threw cleats. He undressed himself just right there as soon as and they won first place. And so she thought that he would be so excited and would have his uniform even go to bed with his uniform on because they won. And he said, well, what is the matter, John? What is going on? And he said, Mom, I am so happy and glad that this soccer season is over. And she said, but I thought that you loved it. You told me you wanted. She said, it was too much, Mom. It's any way that from now on you can listen to me. I know that you were excited to see me, to clap, to cheer. That was always there for me, but I am done. And so she realized then that life is not all about overbooking your kids. It's just about spending time with them. And so the school have a wonderful curriculum that I love the specialty classes, and I love the activities, the celebrations. I am everywhere. When there is a celebration, I am there. I am a party animal. And I just love it. I just love it because I always think the teachers have so much to teach that they don't have extra time to even think and ponder and what to feed, what to dress, what to put, So I always help them with the celebrations. And for me, the celebrations are the grand finale of the book that they're reading. Like my kids were reading Little Women this year, and we had a Little Women celebration, and they have Pinocchio, and we have a celebration about Pinocchio, Winnie the Pooh, and it's just amazing. So I really know that my kids get the extra activities, festivities here at school, and I usually make sure I do it because I want them to experience that. So I try to spend time organizing what they want to be doing and the stuff that they really love to do after school. So,
Thank you, everyone. We're done.